I can't avoid and don't want to avoid addressing the major international conference on climate change in Madrid taking place right now. And you will presumably have noticed that on the eve of the conference, the Secretary General of the United Nations, António Guterres, appointed Mark Carney, the former head of the Bank of Canada, now head of the Bank of England, as his envoy on getting the private sector, the financial and industrial sectors, to deal with climate change. Now, Mark Carney's a very able fellow, and it's undoubtedly a good appointment, but I actually think this is deliberate, that it was a kind of blurring of priorities. Because as important as the private sector is, civil society is, individuals are, as important as all of us are, the answer to saving the planet lies with governments. It has to be governments who respond. So look at the opening of the conference when António Guterres made his major speech. By the way, a very good speech, quite eloquent in delivery, excellent in the approach. He has some terrific speechwriters. But it was a speech of abstractions. Any good environmentalist could have made exactly the same speech. You know, save humanity from the betrayal of the big polluters. You've got to deal with coal-fired plants. You have to deal with natural gas and oil. You may have to leave some fossil fuels in the ground. You have to address renewables. All of the things that have been said ad infinitum over and over again, any environmentalist could have done it. But the one thing that António Guterres could have brought to that speech and didn't, for reasons I don't understand, is to name the individual countries that are responsible for what is happening to the planet. He much preferred to say, well, the G20 is responsible for discharging more than 3/4 of the carbon into the atmosphere, but he will not name the culprits. He will not indicate what policies are perverse. He will not indicate the extent to which individual countries are responsible for carbon discharge. He just will not name and shame countries, and so sharpening the debate is elusive. It doesn't happen. And that's particularly grievous because within his own network, António Guterres has the World Health Organization, which just said that climate change will probably be the greatest threat to the planet in the 21st century. And they talk about the climatic convulsions, and everybody knows, for example, of Cyclone Idai, which swept through Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. And as a result, millions of people are food insecure, millions are on the verge of famine, the agricultural economy has been destroyed, the health infrastructure has been demolished. People living with HIV cannot get their hands on antiretroviral drugs. It is a catastrophe. And if we want to avoid the catastrophe, we have to name the governments who are responsible and identify the particulars of that responsibility. But instead, António Guterres prefers to hide behind a kind of subterfuge of generalities. It's just not good enough. Not by a long shot. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.